in a lot of stores. So it's little wonder that smart shoppers everywhere take time out to pause and refresh. And where else but in the fountain where they serve ice-cold Coca-Cola?
The eMilitia Podcast, Episode 49, Trans-Anarchist Satanist for Sheriff, Aria Dimezzo. Enjoy, fuckers.
Alright, hello and welcome to the eMilitia Podcast. I'm BR, or Bloody Revolutions, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Miss Buckles, Guns and Guillotines, and Rezi. And today we are joined by a very special guest. You've probably seen the headlines all over the place, which is, it's brought a smile to most people I know. So, I gotta get this in the right order. Trans Satanist Anarchist running for sheriff in New Hampshire on the Republican ticket, Aria Dimezzo. Welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. And to be fair, the order of adjectives there isn't super important to me, so... I mean, even the adjectives aren't important to me. They're just kind of there to, you know...
That beautiful shock value.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if they have to if they weigh up, if they're sitting around the boardroom, like which one sounds.
Which one should we say first?
Yeah. Which is the most shocking? And just the three together. I heard you on Anarchy Ball's podcast talking about how it's how you could have gone with voluntarist, trans, libertarian, atheist, but instead it's the shock value, and I really appreciate that. We've got some 90s Marilyn Manson energy back into politics.
Well, I do like Marilyn Manson, so that's awesome to hear.
You struck me as a fan just with the shock value of this. I was like, this is a cultured person right here. So how's the reception been with that?
It's been overwhelmingly positive, even from the conservatives here in New Hampshire. Of course, the actual official Republican Party is not happy about it. There are two groups I've noticed that are just overwhelmingly unhappy about this, and that's the hardcore official Republican side and the anarcho-communists.
Well, if you get elected, you'll be an authority of the Republican side, so then you can call the shots.
I don't want to call the shots, though. I mean, that's kind of why I'm running for sheriff. I want people to call their own shots, right?
I dig it.
Yes.
We'll have to get into that with some explanation for everyone and unpack a lot of that. So, I mean, for one, the anarcho-communists aren't happy with you. So, I take it they're upset. Not a real anarchist and all that fun stuff that comes with being a voluntarist. You got much from them, or?
Yeah, I did a Reddit AMA Thursday on r/politics, and it got brigaded by these anarcho-communists who were just extremely angry that I was calling myself an anarchist. They're like, but you're an anarcho-capitalist. I'm like, well, actually, I'm a voluntarist. But, whatever.
Yeah.
They're never happy.
And it's Reddit, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Yes. Reddit is probably the angriest place to discuss politics ever. You will not learn anything. You'll just learn how to, 8 different things to call people
Take
you don't
abuse.
like. Yeah. You build up a thick skin pretty quick on that.
It's good practice for marriage.
What? Reddit? That's awful.
Oops.
Next Valentine's episode. But so there's that for a start. And a lot of our viewers were like, well, I mean I dig the energy, but where's she at with the anarchist stuff? But I'm glad to hear you're a voluntarist and getting out that it's especially interesting you running on the Republican ticket, because so many they cry out their small government, and I'm sure especially in New Hampshire, and then someone pops up with anarchists. It's like whoa, not that small.
Too small.
Yeah, a little bit bigger, please. Actually, a lot bigger, because I really like the back in the blue and all that. You had 'cause I guess there must be two camps with Republicans. You've got those who are probably terrified of you being on their ticket, and then those who are like, no, I actually kind of dig it. Have you had much of that?
But most people here in New Hampshire, at least, or here in Cheshire County, aren't actually like reaching out to me. I do know that some Republicans actually support the same ideas. I mean, I'm obviously pro small government. I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm against high taxes. I'm for all of these things that Republicans are supposed to be for. I just happen to also take it a little bit further to no taxes, no government, neither of which are even within the purview of a sheriff. So it's not like me holding those positions is actually going to affect how I do the job as sheriff. So I expect a lot of people here in Cheshire County probably are on board with that. But yes, the hardliners, the hardcore Republicans, the neocons, they're not happy.
Well,
they're also never happy.
Yeah, another group that impossible to please. But I mean, that's just kind of
whiny babies, man.
It's the political landscape of our time. Everyone is unhappy and a whining baby. Whatever possessed you to throw yourself into this awful political landscape? What brought you here?
Was it a dare?
It was not a dare. I ran in 2018 for sheriff as a libertarian, but libertarians lost major party ballot access because of the performance of Yolanda Jarvis in the governor's race. So if I was going to run again, I had to go out and collect signatures and petition and all that nonsense, or I had to switch to a major party. Well, here in Cheshire County, the Republican Party is basically non-existent. I mean, it's got members, it exists and all of that, but it's minor, it's insignificant. They can't even fill out an entire ballot with candidates, so I signed up for them.
Yeah, hijacking?
Yes, and I was always upfront about hijacking their political apparatus for the ideas of liberty. I mean, they knew that when I joined because I posted about it publicly. It made them very angry, but not as angry as things like me trying to buy. We had a town nearby that had their post office's American flag stolen and vandalized, and I tried buying this, finding out who it was so that I could buy them a drink, and that really made the Republicans mad.
That's funny.
But as far as what inspired me to get into it, I mean, the American political system is broken. The state apparatus is broken. I mean, it's broken by design. So when I say it's broken, I mean, it's doing exactly what it's intended to do. The problem, I think, is that most people don't realize what it's actually doing. And I'm hoping to bring attention to that and hopefully maybe even become sheriff and be able to dial it back in this one little slice of New Hampshire.
Yeah, and that's something I've really enjoyed seeing with your campaign. It's something myself and Buckles were discussing just before the show, how you've kind of turned voting on its head here, because everyone who just presses the blue or red button have to actually think about what they're doing for once, because you're not a straight up candidate that, wears the red or blue tie and does the things that the party does. It's like, no, I'm telling you, fuck the police, and also like everything.
I was always clear about this.
Yeah. Your campaign material is beautiful. Well, I think the episode cover art will have to be just your campaign sign. But there was, it's not like you're hoodwinking people. It's all out front, but they just have to be mindful enough not to just slam the red button like idiots, like everyone in this country seems to do. They just do that tribalistic thing, hit the button, carry on. And so I heard you again on the Anarchy Bull podcast mentioning how Democrats were quite enthusiastic about you shaking up things, and then all this anti-mask mandates, and all of a sudden they're upset with you. and so
I saw that
disrupting this tribalism. Oh yeah,
I love the internal conflict you're causing these people.
Yes.
Traditionally, more Democrats would appreciate you, but they can't find themselves voting for a Republican, and traditionally Republicans would not like you, but you're on the Republican ballot, so they're going, I don't know what to do. I can't vote really Democrat. There's no way. It's great.
Their feeble minds can literally not comprehend what's going on.
It's been great, and people keep asking me if I expect to win because of this, but who knows what these people are actually going to do. There's so much cognitive dissonance from Democrats who want to like me but don't because of this reason or that reason, and Republicans who don't want to like me but do for this and these other reasons, that I have no ability to predict what in the world is going to happen in November. But
it's a really cool social experiment.
It is. Yeah. And it's fun to go on like these hard left shows. Like one show I did had Yang Gang banners everywhere. They were upfront about being anarcho-communists. And I presented the ideas to this guy that, you know, the state is a religion and people are just taking part in this religious system. And he had never heard those ideas before. And through the course of this hour, he largely agreed with me.
Wow. You just uprooted the entire basis of his show.
I hope so.
Damn it.
Well, and that's kind of the point, is starting the conversation. Like, it's not about winning necessarily, but you've got all these different dialogues started in all these different arenas, and that's awesome.
Yeah. There's so many people who like wouldn't normally really give this a second thought, especially for like a position like sheriff. You know, it's just like, oh yeah, my dad knew him. He was a good cop. Whatever. Hit button. And now it's like, oh wait, we have to question things like no-knock raids and you know, the constitutional reality of feds coming in and enacting nationwide laws that your small county doesn't give a shit about or like is, you know, hardcore against. And they're like, oh, maybe the role of policing needs to be questioned. Hopefully.
I hope so. I hope that's the result of this. I mean, that's the best thing that could result from all of this, is that people actually start questioning the state.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how long it will last, but at least for now, people are having that conversation.
Well, I think it's a good climate to be doing it in, because, I mean, you know, you've got everyone across the board. I mean, you know, the left are calling Trump's administration, you know, fascistic, and thinks it, like we're going to see death camps in the next 4 years. And then we've got the right who are like, you know, out here defending every single cop. And then they watch their fellow churchgoers getting arrested, and they don't know what to think anymore, or like, you know, businesses being shut down for arbitrary reasons. And I think it's a good time to, you know, stir the pot, so to speak, and be like, yeah, your tribalism, it's not going to work out, guys. You gotta do a bit more thinking.
Well, I think you're doing God's work out here. Or Satan's work.
Thanks.
Someone's work.
Good work, yeah.
Do you regret any kind of labels that have been slapped on you? Like, has anything hurt more than helped you so far, or is it all just gravy for the attention, you know, that's helped propel you to the headlines?
And any of the labels, I mean, most of them I put on myself. The only one I don't particularly care for is Shemale, and that's not because it bothers me. I just sort of stopped calling myself that 2-ish years ago, so I don't really throw it around anymore. It doesn't bother me, but it's not one that I would just choose to use.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it's really hurt me with people. I think they get it.
Yeah.
So
I think it shows you have like a thick skin, and that you're not here for the, you know, the bullshit of the culture war. You're more like, you know, here for the values of no government and government for state aggression, all that, you know.
Which I think is good, because you have so many trans people who are like Tiffany, that chick from GameStop who started yelling and screaming because someone called her a guy. And just creating this horrifically bad image for trans people, when most of the trans people I know, they do lean hard left, but they don't have time to get upset about stupid crap like that. And I don't either. And I wish that more people would understand that we're not all of these crazy SJWs running around flipping out at everyone because someone called us a thing that we don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think there's this expectation.
It's a pretty rational way to react to something.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just expect, there's this like awful stereotype now, just like you said, whereas, you know, they almost expect this authoritarian kind of opinion where, like, you know, I want people to point guns and, you know, have my, I don't know, pronouns enforced and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, you're just going way the fuck beyond that and being like, no, I just don't like mandates as a rule. I don't like mandates backed with a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can call me whatever they want.
Yeah.
If they respect my preferences, great. If not, that's okay. But I'm against any and all mandates by the state. No matter how noble the intention is, it's a power grab by the state, and it has never in human history ended well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, window tint backed by violence? I don't think that's terribly reasonable. So
there should be a law.
Yeah, there ought to be a law.
There ought to be a law.
One great example is Eric Garner, the city of New York or New York State, I don't know which exactly it was that made it illegal, but was like, hey, we can't have people unlicensed out there selling cigarettes to people because they won't ID people. They may sell cigarettes to people who are 16 or whatever. and everyone's cheering for it. They're like, hey, this is great. They're right. We shouldn't be able to have this system in place where this guy can sell cigarettes to kids. And then he's dead because the police came out there to enforce this law. That's ultimately how it always plays out. Someone dies because of this stupid mandate. It's not worth it.
It's like, we gotta stop people from, harming themselves. So we're gonna harm them to keep them safe.
Yes. I mean, that's the drug war.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if this year and, the years that we've all been talking about this prior, but I mean, I'm glad it's got the national attention now where it's like, yeah, people are getting hurt for fucking nonsense, for things that are legal the next day over, sometimes the next city over, whatever it might be. People are being, having their homes broken into, shot and killed. We see with the Breonna Taylor case. And it's like, do you guys call this successful? Is this utopian, or are we still crazy for calling you guys out for this, or can we start talking?
Well, even if you don't care about the people being hurt, what about the money being spent? They spend more money fighting the war on drugs than if they just bought all the drugs and destroyed them.
Way more. Which
about actually fighting the war on drugs. It's about oppressing the people and finding excuses to extort them and kill them.
Yeah, and have a skeleton key to every home in America with legal authority.
Yeah,
correct.
And to have an enemy to put a face on.
Yep, someone to direct the state violence and legitimize, defense contractors sending your local PD an armored Humvee or whatever it might be, MRAP even.
The Keene PD has a Bearcat here.
Oh, that should be fun.
There's absolutely no need for Keene PD, which has like maybe one violent crime every 6 months, to have a Bearcat or a SWAT team, or even 1/10 of the police force that they have. But the state being what it is, and the police apparatus being what it is, of course they have a Bearcat. Why wouldn't they? This little town this little idyllic community here in the middle of New Hampshire where the crime rate is basically non-existent. Why wouldn't that police department have a Bearcat?
Yeah.
Well, your first act as sheriff should be to test out that Bearcat to the extreme and see what you can get that thing to do. Get it buried in the mud, climb some walls with it.
Have some fun.
As much as I would love to, I don't think that I would be able to because it belongs to the Keene Police Department and not the Sheriff's Department.
Damn.
And I don't think they would let me borrow it to go joyriding. Although they might. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. They I mean, on a serious note, if you're able to kind of lessen the amount of just stupid, mindless danger, because coming from a more conservative standpoint, the amount of reckless endangerment we put cops in for like stupid victimless crimes is just massive in this country. And so, I mean, you managed to kind of lessen the amount of just needless violence they face. Yeah, needless risk they face, rather, going on these, missions of theft. I don't know, maybe they'll let you start joyriding.
It's a good way to market it, too.
That's what I was thinking.
I think that would be how it played out.
Promotional videos.
Because, they would mostly get fired if they weren't out there extorting people, because there wouldn't be any justification for their jobs. I mean, they need the victimless crime laws to be in place so that they have something to do instead of just sitting around at the office all day.
Quite correct. I'm sure traffic violations are going to lessen under your leadership.
They're going to be downsizing.
I really hope so, because that's what I want my department and my deputies to go out and do, is police the police. If you see them pulling someone over, pull over that police officer and ask them why they're bothering this peaceful citizen.
Yeah.
And hopefully, eventually, they'll just stop pulling people over for stupid things like going 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, or not using a turn signal early enough, or any of this other nonsense that they use to, start searching people for drugs and then ultimately kill them on the side of the streets or whatever, which doesn't happen much here in Keene or Cheshire County. In fact, I don't think the cops here have killed anyone in probably more than 10 years. Which is good, but these things are happening all throughout the United States. And if we can call attention to that, and if we can present an example to the world where these things are not happening and the society doesn't fall apart, it's not anarchy, people aren't rioting in the streets, then maybe people will try it elsewhere. Yeah. Because we can't trust these city councils to actually defund their police departments. They're just going to use them as ways of increasing police funding.
Yep, I love all of this. We'll just we'll create a committee and then all will be fine. Like, okay, so we're gonna have a bunch of people get elected. We're gonna pay them to then talk about the police brutality happening, and then I don't know, maybe something happens, and then life continues as normal. Drug war continues. Nothing really changes. But then we'll have another, set of riots in 3-4 years, whenever's politically necessary. And I'm worried that's where this energy for defund the police is going to end. It's going to kind of be like, oh no, we've got like a very PC committee now to talk about it, so all is well, rather than actually addressing the fundamental issue of state-sanctioned violence. Do you think
I would expect from it? The city council, if anything at all results from it, it will be that police get more funding.
Seriously, yeah. Our friends at the Biting the Bullet podcast was just talking about this, how Phoenix PD, the amount of so their success rate with solving rapes and murders is going down, but then their budget is going up by like hundreds of millions. Not because their training's getting better, or it's like we're equipping them to do better, because clearly the results don't show that. We're actually just paying them to pay off when there's innocent victims harmed by them, and we have these lawsuits for tens of millions of dollars. So it's like, okay, so it's not coming out of their money. We're just paying them more to cover their ass, which is unsustainable.
And this is why qualified immunity has to go, right? If the police could actually be sued for this nonsense and they had to actually pay for the damage they caused, they would probably be a little bit more careful before they just whipped out their gun and started shooting into unknown places and apartments. But they don't have to. Instead, that bill is just pushed off to the taxpayers.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we treated doctors the way we treat cops, where they, a doctor has a bad surgery and then he has another one and he keeps on fucking up, like really pointlessly, on a routine procedure, and we're just like, well, the hospital is covering it. He's part of the hospital, and the hospital doesn't need to be fixed, because most of what the hospital does is really good. Like, you'd be like, I'm gonna stay the fuck away from this hospital. That's terrifying. But then with police, we're like, a few bad apples.
Well, even the people who are, awake to the problem that the police system as a whole is corrupt and not helping anything, it's not like we can opt out of it. We can't just say, well, I'm not going to that hospital, because the police, there's no consent involved in the interaction with police.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you can get as far away from it as you like, I mean, we can go back to our old libertarian examples of Waco and Ruby Ridge. You can really try and get the fuck away from police, and they'll find you, and they'll agitate you, and find some way to make you violent. And if they don't like you, they're gonna bring in guns and eventually kill you, or put you in a cage. And there's, like you said, there's no way to opt out. And something that I wanted to get in with you was, we obviously, as like anarchists and anarcho-capitalists, we talk about privatizing the police. But I mean, in this current environment, can you imagine if we really hardcore push for privatization of the police, the amount of deaf ears we're gonna get?
I ran into that yesterday. It was like the first interview I did when I woke up. It was this, I guess he was left-leaning, and we got into what my ideal society would be like, and I pointed out that, ideally, we would privatize the police so that they actually had to compete with other departments, and this would hold them to a higher standard than what we currently have. And he immediately launched this, but then racist people can call the police and then make it a racist in response. I'm like, dude, we have that now.
yeah, like,
that's literally what is happening.
I never get this. I never get this. But what if the warlords are in control, or any of that kind of nonsense? And it's like, buddy, look around right now.
And then when you point it out, their only answer is, well, I think it would be worse.
Yeah.
On what basis? I mean, how could it possibly be worse than 100 million people killed in the last century by other governments? Not to mention the 250 million killed by their own governments. Yeah. No matter what we do in this next century, how could it possibly be worse than that?
Yeah, we would really have to like hardcore go out of our way to beat the 20th century and their state violence.
And people are always, what about people like Charles Manson and stuff like that? You have murderers out there who wish harm to people. I'm like, yes, I know that. Let's stop putting those people in positions of power.
Seriously.
Exactly.
There will still be people who want to hunt down serial killers.
That's true.
Right.
The same
probably
people that
enjoy
go
being
into
a professional.
the same people that go into policing now because they believe it's for the greater good. Those people will still exist, and they will still want to take care of the citizens. They just won't be forced to attack this citizens for victimless crimes.
Yep.
I like that you said that. That's essentially what I wrote in my official platform on my campaign site, is that, these police, they didn't join the police forces because they wanted to go around harassing people. They did it because they actually want to help people. And then they found themselves trapped in this system that does anything but help people. I want to help them be the police that they want to be instead of being the police that they are. Yeah. I don't believe that the domestic violence rate among police and their spouses would be 40% if police were actually able to take pride in what they do. But they can't take pride in this nonsense. Who's going to take pride because they pulled over some 17-year-old and they found an ounce of pot? So they arrested him and they ruined this kid's life for the next 3 years. That's not something to be proud of. That's something to be deeply, deeply ashamed of. And I think on a human level, deep down inside, they are ashamed of their actions and they don't want to continue doing this. I can't imagine how they could want to.
That's why police suicide's so high.
Exactly.
I did not know that. I mean, I can see why.
I didn't either. I haven't heard anything about police suicide being
up guilt though.
It's higher than most professions.
Shit.
Well, how can you expect people to go out and infringe on people's rights constantly and not have it affect them? Humans weren't meant to do that.
Yeah.
Most humans have compassion of some sort.
Yeah, that's almost sad.
So I know your campaign's been very hardcore of the, F the police, fuck the police, all this, and I love it. And I obviously mirror the same sentiment in a lot of my stuff. Then you talk with like a lot of empathy about how to actually fix problems. So do you have a lot of confusion when people kind of hear that and they're like, because you're obviously you're not an edgy teenager, out to just upset people. You've actually got solutions and real points to make. So do you have a lot of shock when people find that you actually have stances and ideas to back up your rhetoric?
I don't get to see that like in person or firsthand or anything. No one has yet approached me saying, wow, I expected you to just be trolling people, but you actually have this thought out ideology that you're presenting to people. I don't know. I do know that, that's largely the reason that I ran with F the police instead of something else that would be in line but less jarring. It comes back to why I call myself an anarchist and a Satanist and all of these other things. And it's because I want to get people's attention so that they hear what I say next.
And it's worked. I love it.
I hope so. I don't. They heard what I said, but did they listen? Time will tell.
I think at least in our community, you've been it was like a flash of lightning through the community. All of a sudden, everyone's like, wait, anarchist, like real anarchist or just like edgy anarchist? Oh shit! Okay, cool. And like literally, so I've got some listener questions, and at least 15 of them are variations of. Wow, based, holy based, oh my word, and all this kind of stuff saying like, that's fine. How can one be so based? So everyone, I think everyone was like, is this a joke? Nope, not a joke. This is not a drill. And
see where some people like saw the headlines on Facebook or whatever, and they just ignored it and kept scrolling. They're like, "There's no way this could possibly be true."
Yeah. It like with all my love and hope for your campaign, it read like an Onion article. I was like, okay, who's fucking around? And then I had the same reaction. I was like, wow, completely on board with everything here, obviously. So that's been a great relief, and especially in such a year of shitty politics, it's nice to have kind of I think that's why everyone's so enthusiastic about hearing about you, because it's like a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, cool, this is actually this might change a few minds in a year.
Well, I love it because you are sticking it to them.
Yeah.
But like BR said, you actually have solutions to problems too.
Yeah, I hope they're hearing those solutions, because all of these things can be done better than through the police state that we have now. If you want to convince someone that something is bad, don't put a gun to their head, convince them. And like, And that's how we got the drug war. People are like, oh, drug war is bad, sex work is bad. Okay, well, try to convince people of that instead of resorting to this apparatus that goes and puts a gun to their heads and kill them if they don't obey your arbitrary mandate because you think it's a bad idea. Let this person make their own choices and try to reason with them and convince them to make better choices.
Or give them better options so they don't have to go into drug work or sex work.
Well, I mean, if people want to go into those things, I don't think those are really bad options. They're dangerous, but they're largely dangerous because of the police.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who's visited Amsterdam or anywhere else where it's legalized, it's a outright pleasure. It feels like, you know, one of the most normal places on earth. if you're well adjusted, you walk around, you're like, this is how it should be. Fuck yeah.
I mean, selling alcohol was also very dangerous and generally frowned upon during the Prohibition era. But as soon as we got rid of that prohibition, suddenly it was okay to manufacture and sell alcohol and no one looked down on it.
Yeah. I mean, Rezi, do you remember celebrating when the Prohibition was lifted?
Yes, I do.
Were you old enough to
I mean, I never stopped celebrating, but...
Old man joke in. I haven't got one in like 5 episodes. There we go.
You've been missing your quota, man.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, I've been upsetting people. So, are you hopeful for the campaign? Have you got any contenders, like from the Democrats or otherwise?
Yeah, well, there's the incumbent, Eli Rivera.
Oh, okay.
I'm running against him. There are rumors circulating, and I happen to know for a fact that these rumors are true, but I can't reveal how I know that, so I just keep citing them as rumors. That the Cheshire County Republicans, with the blessing of the New Hampshire GOP, are running a write-in campaign for Earl Nelson, the guy who had the Republican nomination the last 4 terms and who repeatedly lost to Eli Rivera, by the way. So instead of trying something different, they want to go back to their old ways so that they know they'll lose or whatever. But what they don't understand is that this will only help me. If you take the hardcore Republicans who otherwise would vote for Rivera, and you give them Earl Nelson instead, then you're left with me getting all of these straight ticket Republican voters. The Democrats that I pull over from Rivera, they're basically splitting the hardliner vote between Earl Nelson and Eli Rivera. I'm like, this is great. Go for it, guys. Not to mention the headlines of you idiots actually running a campaign against me, a write-in campaign. They're just going to give me more publicity and fewer votes to Eli Rivera. I'm all for it. This will be great.
It's only an endorsement from, like, you know, the small for small government, because you have the mainline party just like, you know, here's our button, you can hit it again. and everyone's like, that's not working. And especially after 4 years of Trump, I mean, we have so many Republicans who I mean, bless them, they're on suicide watch. It's once bump stocks went and all this, you know, I think I'll take the guns first talk. There's so many who are like, I'm mainly a 2A voter and I've been drinking more than I used to. So I think that's true of a lot of our new listeners. But yeah, so I mean, you give them something different. So many who, you know, 4 years ago might have been calling you all sorts of awful things will now be like, yeah, I actually really like I'm gonna anything different, please.
I hope so.
Your consistency. I mean, all it takes. I think
teaching people to look past labels.
Seriously, I think the Second Amendment crowd doesn't get nearly enough praise for their ability to look past even like party lines and be like, I don't give a shit what this person's otherwise into. Like, they believe in the Second Amendment, and that's a fundamental core value to be able to defend yourself against tyranny. So. Fuck yeah, I don't care what they're about, what labels they stack on themselves, how they live their life. If you agree with my right to defend myself and I agree with your right to defend yourself, beautiful, let's do our thing. And I think you're going to pull over a lot of those kind of, rural Republican voters who, they're like, I don't give a fuck about the rest. If I'm going to lose my gun, then the rest is just pointless, you know?
And this is New Hampshire. I suspect that there are a lot of those types of conservative Republicans here. Those ones who generally, they just want to be left alone.
Yep.
And they want to keep their guns. They want to have their guns, and they don't want anyone bothering them. They don't want the feds coming onto their property to tell them what they can and can't do.
Yep.
There are a lot of those here in New Hampshire. It's the live free or die state, after all. It's already got very strong libertarian leanings with its conservatism. So... Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I suspect many of them won't care about the labels, but some will.
Yeah, I think there'll be a little bit of a divide with that, but like I said, I think so many in these times labels are becoming less and less meaningful. I mean, we've got a quote-unquote Republican who was a Democrat his whole life, with on his third wife, but also Jesus is back in the White House. So God knows what's up with politics right now. I think so many people are going to be beyond caring about such things. We'll have your hardcore traditionalist types who get upset about such things, but I think so many are going to be like, fuck it, just please look after my rights.
Well, I think a lot of people voted for Donald Trump because they thought they were going to throw a metaphorical bomb at the system. People are fed up with the American political system. It's obviously not effective. It's clearly broken. It's clearly not helping anyone. So they're like, all right, well, let's throw a bomb at it. Vote for Trump. And then he went in there and he wasn't the bomb they expected. Okay. So vote for someone who's actually philosophically consistent about being a bomb thrown at the state apparatus, a metaphorical bomb, to be clear. How about doing that instead? Vote for an actual anarchist who actually wants to dismantle the system.
So that's something that's gonna like.
You have my vote.
Are you in New Hampshire, Guns?
No, but I'll drive up there.
There you go. We'll boss them in.
I'll commit voter fraud.
God, and the episode's cut. This is something that's gonna like, and it's always a contentious issue with the LP and anarchist and all that. But how do you marry just the label anarchist with an electoral campaign? Like a lot of people will be upset that you're like, vote for me, I'm an anarchist. What do you say to those kind of people?
Voting in and of itself isn't an act of aggression. That's like saying pulling the trigger on a gun is an act of aggression. Voting is pulling the trigger on the gun. It matters what you're shooting for, what you're voting for, what you're aiming at. If you go in there and you vote for like Donald Trump, yes, you're committing an act of aggression. But if you vote for an anarchist who isn't going to commit an act of aggression, then voting in and of itself isn't an act of aggression. So that would be my first response. And yes, it does require some level of sacrifice of my ideals, my principles, and I recognize that, and that sucks. And I can grit my teeth and do it because otherwise people are dying. We don't have time right now to lay out and implement this anarchic system that actually solves these problems in a 100% voluntary way. I wish we had that time. That's the goal, but we have to take that first step on that path first, and I want to take that first step. Before we can convince people that it's okay, it's safe to live without a state, we have to say, okay, well, look, you don't actually need the police out here doing this. If we can make that first step, maybe we can convince them of the rest of it.
I can appreciate that. I think that's something a lot of people, I think we've all been guilty of it. We expect this, this snap event, and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, everything's in Kapistan, and it's like, I wish. But
yeah, it's a long road to that.
Yeah. But before we can have any real change, it needs to be, because you will never get every single, you won't even get 50% of this nation saying like, yes, I'm an anarchist. That's not going to happen. But what we can do is show just via the market and via, evidence that a stateless society can work. And so something that, you see people talk about is this shift and kind of lessening the outsourcing of our responsibilities to state apparatus, and so to take away things like all this victimless crime enforcement and be like, okay, so the town's not on fire yet, no one's died, there's not looting and raping, what next? Does this need to be even an agency in the town, or can we just have volunteer citizen sheriffs? Can we bring this down a notch? And how far can we go without everyone losing their fucking mind?
That's exactly it.
Practicing what we preach and showing that it does work.
And I obviously believe that it would work, and I think most people who actually put thought into it believe that it would work.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are scared of the possibility. People are scared of just taking that leap into the abyss and finding out what happens. So, okay, well, let's stick our toes in the shallow end first and make sure that we're not going to melt when we get in the pool. Make sure that everything is fine. But I mean, it's time. It's time to actually start dismantling the state apparatus. So let's do that. Let's dip our feet in the pool and see what happens. Maybe it'll fail spectacularly. I don't think it will. But it can't be worse. And if it fails spectacularly, okay, well, now we know not to try that again.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, before they, get upset about you running a campaign or anything, for our hardcore anarchist friends, we should keep in mind, on your website, you talk about, just removing yourself from the state in other ways, like cryptocurrency. So putting your money in a place where the feds can't touch it, and thus, removing a way for them to, fund themselves, and just taking away assets that are readily available to them and moving them to something that's not. And so
that is the strongest and best way that we could actually reach a free society, is to just start using cryptocurrency, to stop using their money. Start using money that they can't inflate to pay for their police forces or their bombs or their wars. And Monero is the best choice for that. If not Monero, then Bitcoin, but preferably Monero.
Oh god, I can already hear the agorists arguing. I'll leave it at that. But lest I have my DMs ruined. But yeah, absolutely. I mean the principle's all the same, just managing to take away assets from the state. And I think a lot of people get hung up on just doing one thing, and of course you'll have people scream partyarchy and stuff, but I think this hostile takeover of this campaign, I'm not a voter myself, but I love it, and I think you're going to change minds that would have never touched upon anarchy. They would have been allergic to the word. They would have seen it as an adjective for chaos and nothing else, not a political ideology or even like a philosophical ideology. And I think they're gonna, I mean, they might not be black flag waving lunatics like the rest of us, overnight, but I think you're gonna have people really questioning, what the state is and how much authority they should have. Really regular voters in your community are going to be like, is this really as legit as I think it is? And that'll do so much. I think we need more of that to be happening in, rural America and just all over, not just in these big displays of, revolution, but just the quiet conversations make just as much impact,
That's how it plays out. I mean, Donald Trump just named like 3 cities as being terrorist or anarchy zones or whatever. And then I come along.
Jurisdictions.
Yeah, and I come along as an actual anarchist, like, hey, none of this crap is correct. That's not anarchism. So hopefully people are becoming aware of that conflict between what anarchy actually is and these things happening elsewhere that don't actually have anything to do with anarchy.
Yeah. I think our job's being done for us. Like the more the Department of Justice screams anarchy, and people are like, "Well, not really, actually," and and we're actually making these headlines just by their own kicking and screaming. I mean, it's the best publicity we've had in years.
That's true. Unfortunately, it does leave a lot of people believing that situation is anarchy.
But I mean, if you've learned anything from this campaign, it must be that any publicity is good publicity. Even the ones screaming your name like, look at this, chaotic troll. I mean, people still look you up and they're like, yeah, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Any publicity is probably good. I'm sure there's a limit, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have outright smear pieces, but I mean, for the most part, someone like all this boogaloo nonsense that we had, calling them white supremacists and stuff. So many journalists would actually dig into it and see like, oh no, they're just libertarians with guns wearing Hawaiian shirts making a meme of, gun rights and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of my friends are boogaloo boys. They're not racist. They're not transphobic. They're not hateful. They hate. I don't want to say hate. Hate's a strong word, but they do not tolerate racist and anti-LGBT people because they're libertarians with guns.
Yeah. And seeing the media kind of have to eat its words and shut the fuck up about that, like midway through their hardcore reporting on their presence at protests and stuff, was quite delightful. You see like only the real adamant papers use those words these days, but for the most part, they've kind of backed off because they're like, we're actually kind of looking like dumbasses here.
Which is good. Because it was a dumbass thing. I mean, when my car was vandalized, it was the Boogaloo Boys who contacted me. I was like, hey, we want to be your security team. And I was like, it's not necessary, guys. But that's the kind of people these are. I mean, they're wonderful people.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally voluntarism in action, you know? We have guys perfectly willing to stand between, you know, BLM protesters and riot police to make sure they don't start lighting them up with rubber bullets and escalating things. And, you know, in front of businesses, and same deal, making sure police don't just go in there with force and shutting stuff down.
Yep.
And so many people, not to hijack this and make it about them, but it's this like de-escalating state actions with equal force. And so seeing you put yourself into the system in a similar kind of way is I think it's exactly what we should be doing in all sorts of different facets, you know, with politics right now.
I would agree.
Well, you even use like the negative experiences as a good like example and lesson, because even with your car being vandalized, I had read that you had, you know, gotten the GoFundMe and you answered why you did that because you're trying not to involve law enforcement. And it was also a good example of how even private businesses like insurance, they can't operate on their own without some form of like law enforcement involvement, like the police report and things like that. So you're like, this is how we can help people in voluntary ways without law enforcement.
True, and I think that's the point my campaign manager, Ian Freeman, was trying to make. I didn't have anything to do with the GoFundMe. He set that up when I was at work, and I don't think I put in any actual input into him doing it. I personally would not have done it. I wouldn't have asked anyone to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I do take donations now, but it's because Wells Fargo, being part of the state apparatus, saw fit to close my bank account, and they're holding pretty much all of my money at the moment, and God only knows when I'm going to get it. So I was like, okay, well, I still have to do this.
Just off the election.
Probably.
Be like, oh yeah, we've cleared everything up, and you can have this back now.
Yeah, that's not unlikely.
So
I mean, I'm hoping that the tentacles of the state aren't as powerful as people are expecting, but it's like that with the Facebook ban, the Twitter ban, Wells Fargo closing my account. How much of this is actually like a result of me poking at the political system? I don't think much of it is. I don't think any of it really is, but it could be.
It's easy to get paranoid, and I am definitely one to be like, oh, Instagram's not working, feds. Like, only half ironically, I think our community, we feel like so much odd suppression, and it's very hard to be like, do I put my tinfoil hat on, or do I just carry on? Like, how much of this do I call out? Because I mean, I'm sure we all feel just here and there little things where it's like, yeah, that's kind of fucky. Well, I don't think this is normal.
Sometimes I feel I'm paranoid that I'm not paranoid enough.
The worst.
Well, a lot of it online is just algorithms, like it just what you post and how you do it. But in like small towns, you know, because I live in a small town too, when it comes to politics and stuff, like the nepotism and everything is so deep seated. Like it is a lot of it. It just takes one phone call to somebody and now your account's frozen, because a manager at a local branch can do that. That doesn't have to be like a corporate level thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, that still happens. Yeah.
It is. The Wells Fargo thing is just related to me selling Bitcoin, and the social media things definitely a result of algorithms. The Twitter one is the most curious because I posted something early this morning, and I've been trying to tag the New Hampshire GOP in it because I'm calling them out for being hypocrites and not actually believing in the Second Amendment or small government or any of these other things. And the tweet keeps disappearing. It just vanishes after I post it. With no message, no warning, no anything. Is it an algorithm doing that? Because there's nothing offensive in the post. It's just tagging the New Hampshire GOP and telling them that I'm calling them out. And then it's gone.
Yeah, it always makes me chuckle when you see Republicans call out about being suppressed, and it's like, I'm not sure, man. I think you guys do it right. Someone's looking out for you. But do you want to move on to some questions from our listeners?
Absolutely.
All right. So I've got like about 6 of this, but what would your first move as sheriff be if you win?
To rewrite the policies of what my deputies are supposed to be doing. Like right now, they are effectively a police force. That's not what I want them to do. They will have 3 options. They can sit in the office and play video games or listen to music or whatever the hell they want to do, and only respond to crimes where there are actual victims. They can go out and police the police, who are the ones creating crimes where there are actual victims, obviously, or they can quit. Those are the options. That would be the first thing I did. Like, okay, well, look, I realize you're used to this old system, but I'm your new boss, and this is what we're going to do. You either sit here and wait until there's a crime with the victim, or you go and you police the police, or get the hell out.
No fucking around. I love it.
Yeah. And then I'm going to deputize my cats because I think that would be really funny.
I see those kind of posts, like when you see I don't know, like this cat's in charge of a train station in Japan, or this dog's a mayor of a town somewhere. That shit lasts for years and it'll fill wholesome pages. We need more of that. We need more deputized and animal mayors in the world. So I 100% back that. I
think cats are great for deputies.
Yeah, they leave everyone the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something about policing the police I really loved hearing you say was policing federal police. So I'm not fully familiar with like all the legalese about this, but you mentioned sheriffs being the only ones able to arrest federal agents and stuff within your county.
Well, especially here in New England, where a lot of the roles of the sheriffs and the authorities of the sheriff is borrowed from like medieval England.
Yeah.
The sheriff is the highest law enforcement official in the county. So
even above federal?
Yes.
Cool.
If they're within Cheshire County, or because of a law that New Hampshire passed, if they're anywhere in New Hampshire, then legally, I'm a higher law enforcement official than them. There's probably an exception for the Secret Service, but that's because the Secret Service doesn't care about what is legally right. But yes, I fully expect all of those positions, if it ever actually comes to a head, if I ever actually see FBI agents here in Cheshire County and I actually tell them to leave, or I'm going to arrest them for trespassing, I fully expect that to end badly for me. Probably with me getting arrested and having to just pay countless attorneys to fight this battle in the Supreme Court. Who knows how that would go? I don't expect it to be a walk in the park where I can just say, okay, well, you're not welcome here. Get the hell out. And they go, okay, sheriff. I don't expect that. Maybe that's what will happen. But if I have to fight these people in the legal system to reassert our sovereignty, then that's what has to be done.
Yeah, you talk about being a secessionist was something I was like, that's 100% the way to go. And talking about sovereignty from federal government is a big one. And I mean, we have all these scares, especially like in Virginia right now with Ralph Northam going on about his assault weapons ban and all that kind of stuff, red flag laws, being able to be like, well, my local cops aren't going to enforce it. So if you send feds to come and do the muscle, we're gonna arrest them too, or at least stand off against them and cause them as much trouble as humanly possible. So I mean, to force that to a head where it's like, you're gonna have to really address this in court and set precedent. That's a big one, especially in a time when so many, and this is something that Republicans should be excited for with all their Tea Party scares during the Obama era, with standoffs against federal agents. I think that's really like the darkest part of American politics and American policing right now. Like we saw all of these unmarked cops in what's now anarchist jurisdictions, popping up just to kidnap Antifa teenagers and scare them a little bit. And it's like, okay, when's that going to happen to gun owners or whatever else they want to go Orwellian on us with? So to have someone say, I'm 100% prepared to stand up to that regardless of the consequences is big, and something I'd hate to see anything happen to you, but I'd love to see how that went and how they address it on a national stage.
I hope we never have to find out, but I expect that we probably would. And I expect it to not, like I said, I don't expect that to end well for me. Maybe it will. It did fine for the people at Bundy Ranch. It didn't end as well as good for the people at Waco, though. You know. And this is probably, oh God, this is probably going to give me all sorts of watch lists that I'm probably already on. But thanks so much for the podcast, guys. I look forward to being raided by the feds soon.
Yeah, that's a common feature of our guests. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, welcome.
Hope you're a light sleeper.
That's why we're so paranoid.
We get cool jackets.
Yeah. So slightly heavy question there, but I'm glad that you know that's already decided before you've ever stepped in office. It's good to see those principles.
Well, I knew when I decided to take up the fight against the state, when I saw it for what it was, I knew that this was probably going to end badly. I mean, because the state is the most violent institution in the history of humanity, and I want to dismantle it. So, of course, if push comes to shove, it's going to use that violence on me. And I knew that going in. So, what's the worst they can do? Kill me?
That old thing.
Yeah.
You have no power here.
There are worse things than that.
Seriously.
Agreed.
Poor Russ Ulbricht and Snowden, exiled and imprisoned and exiled.
A sheriff, and I wish they lived in Cheshire County when that happened. Snowden, Assange, Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht's in prison, unfortunately. There's nothing I can do about that. But if these people were free and I was sheriff and they were in Cheshire County, the feds would never reach them, or we would end up with situations like Waco at Ruby Ridge because these people are innocent. Yeah. They're peaceful people, and you're trying to charge them with this nonsense. I mean, the state is just trying to use violence against them to further its own ends.
Yeah, right now, our best hope whenever there's like a scare about a liberty-minded individual is they run like fuck and head for a friendly militia, and then it gets really tense, and usually someone gets shot, and it's not fair. So to have like I
want anyone to be shot.
Yeah.
Fed or not.
Yeah.
There's no reason for violence to be so endemic throughout our society that's what it comes to. Can we, maybe guys, can we just talk about this and what you guys are doing here and why I want you the hell out?
Yeah, and to have like a sanctuary county for people who are so-called enemies of the state for completely peaceful reasons that the government doesn't like. That would be a nice precedent to set, but yet to see even a red state that's ballsy enough to call itself a liberty sanctuary. Of course, it's not going to happen when there's a R in the oval, but I mean, maybe we'll see it eventually. But I mean, maybe if we start turning these counties into liberty-oriented counties, we'd actually see some backbone. Somewhere that people could be like, yeah, I'm kind of terrified of the death sentence for my victimless crime. I'm gonna camp out here for a bit. Rather than running away to Russia.
Did you have any further questions? Pretty soon I'm going to have to get ready for work.
Oh, no worries. I think I'm about out because we answered a lot. I'm looking through my questions and we answered a lot without even having to resort to them. You guys have anything?
No, I think we're good to wrap up.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. I'm excited to watch, and promote. This is legit.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, where can we find you? And where can we find you?
Plug your stuff.
What county are you running in, and when's the election?
I'm running in Cheshire County. The election is on November the 3rd, the same day as it's a general election. Yep. It's in Cheshire County, New Hampshire. People can find out more about my platform and my positions at fpolice.com. That's EFFpolice.com.
Nice and polite.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then,
do you have any social medias that you would like?
I do, but they're all either banned or possibly shadow banned at the moment. So there are links to that on my website as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you on Instagram yet?
I run the Fork Fest, which is a festival that we do here in New Hampshire. Instagram, but I'm not personally on it.
Gotcha. Well, that's where we run. There's a great community on there. If you ever feel inclined to come and join, and we'll of course shout you out if you ever join the platform. But yeah, it's been great talking to you, Aria. Thank you for coming on, and best of luck.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.